Hello, beautiful listeners, and welcome back to Green Earth Essentials. I'm your host, Michelle Jackson, and today we're diving deep into a topic that hides in plain sight: palm oil. It's in our cookies, shampoos, makeup, laundry detergents, and even in biodiesel. But behind this common ingredient lies a complex web of environmental, social, and ethical issues. In this episode, we'll uncover the true cost of palm oil, not in dollars, but in forests, wildlife, human rights, and climate stability. If you care about protecting biodiversity, reducing your ecological footprint, and making informed choices, this conversation is for you. Palm oil is derived from the fruit of the oil palm tree, Elaeus guineensis, native to West Africa, but now grown predominantly in Southeast Asia. Its popularity comes from its incredibly high yield. Compared to other vegetable oils, it requires less land and fewer resources. Just 1 hectare of oil palm can yield up to 10 times more oil than soybean. It's cheap, versatile, shelf-stable, and odorless, which makes it an industry favorite. You'll find it in half of all packaged products in your local supermarket. But this efficiency has come at a cost. To meet global demand, vast swaths of rainforest have been cleared, often illegally, to plant oil palms. Palm oil's versatility is also tied to its unique chemical properties. It stays solid at room temperature, which makes it ideal for processed foods like cookies, margarine, and instant noodles. It also adds smooth texture to soaps, shampoos, lotions, and cosmetics without the need for synthetic stabilizers. In recent years, it's even become a key ingredient in biofuels, further increasing demand. This widespread use, combined with low production costs, has made palm oil an economic powerhouse. But the global appetite for this golden oil continues to drive unsustainable practices, often in regions where environmental regulations are weak or poorly enforced. The biggest environmental cost of palm oil is deforestation. In countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, which together produce more than 85% of the world's palm oil, Millions of hectares of tropical rainforest have been cleared to make way for plantations. According to Global Forest Watch, Indonesia alone lost over 9 million hectares of tree cover between 2001 and 2020. That's an area roughly the size of the entire state of Maine, gone in less than 2 decades. But these forests aren't just made of trees, they're ancient ecosystems that have evolved over millennia. They're home to some of the most biodiverse habitats on Earth, sheltering endangered species like orangutans, Sumatran tigers, pygmy elephants, and clouded leopards. When the forests go, so do the fragile webs of life that depend on them. It's not just species extinction, it's ecological collapse. The loss of forests also leads to severe soil erosion. When trees are removed, the land loses its natural anchor, making it vulnerable to landslides and nutrient depletion. This harms local agriculture and can poison nearby rivers with sediment runoff. And then there's the water cycle. Tropical forests help regulate rainfall patterns, both locally and globally. When they're destroyed, it can trigger prolonged droughts or flooding, not just in Southeast Asia, but in regions as far away as Australia and East Africa. And let's not forget the role these forests play in climate regulation. They act as vital carbon sinks, pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere and storing it in biomass and soil. When these forests are cut or burned, especially through slash and burn clearing, a common practice in palm oil expansion, massive amounts of carbon are released into the air. According to a 2019 study in Nature Communications, land use change in Southeast Asia accounts for more than 10% of global carbon emissions from deforestation. In short, deforestation for palm oil isn't just a local problem, it's a planetary crisis. It contributes to global warming, water insecurity, species loss, and destabilized communities. And all of this is driven by demand for an ingredient that shows up in everything from margarine and makeup to shampoo and snack foods. The rapid expansion of palm oil plantations has pushed some of the world's most beloved and endangered animals to the edge of extinction. Among them are the Sumatran orangutan, the Bornean orangutan, the Sumatran tiger, and the Bornean pygmy elephant. These species once thrived in vast, unbroken rainforests, but now, as those forests are cleared for monoculture crops, their habitats are shrinking at an alarming rate. The numbers are staggering. According to a 2018 study published in Current Biology, the Bornean orangutan population dropped by more than 100,000 individuals between 1999 and 2015. That's over half their population gone in just 16 years. Much of that loss is tied to habitat destruction from palm oil, logging, and mining. The critically endangered Sumatran tiger has fewer than 400 individuals left in the wild, struggling to survive in increasingly fragmented forests. And the Bornean pygmy elephant, already one of the rarest elephant subspecies on Earth, faces habitat isolation, often forced into human settlements where conflict can be fatal. When forests are broken up by roads and plantations, animals don't just lose trees, they lose access to food, water, and safe migration paths. These isolated patches lead to genetic bottlenecks, higher infant mortality, and increased human-wildlife conflict. Orangutans in particular are often seen as pests when they wander into plantations looking for food, and they're sometimes killed or captured illegally. There are glimmers of hope. Wildlife rescue centers and rehabilitation sanctuaries across Indonesia and Malaysia are working to care for injured or orphaned animals, with some successfully reintroducing orangutans back into protected forests. Wildlife corridors, carefully managed green spaces that link habitat patches, can help animals move safely between areas. But these efforts, while vital, are often underfunded and overwhelmed by the scale of deforestation. The World Wildlife Fund and other conservation groups warn that if current rates of land conversion continue, we could lose species like the Sumatran orangutan entirely within the next few decades. And it's not just about iconic megafauna. Countless lesser-known species, frogs, insects, orchids, fungi disappear with the forest, often before they're even named by science. Protecting wildlife means protecting entire ecosystems, and right now, palm oil is a driving force behind some of the most aggressive habitat loss on the planet. The animals are sounding the alarm. We just need to listen. One of the most destructive and underreported consequences of palm oil production is the widespread use of fire to clear land. In countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, it's common practice to set fires to quickly and cheaply clear rainforests for palm oil plantations. But this method is especially devastating when it involves peatlands, wetlands made up of decayed organic matter that have taken thousands of years to form. Peatlands are one of the planet's most carbon-dense ecosystems, according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. Peatlands store twice as much carbon as all the world's forests combined, despite covering only 3% of the Earth's land surface. When these areas are drained and burned, they release not just carbon dioxide, but also methane and nitrous oxide, greenhouse gases that are 25 and nearly 300 times more potent than CO2 over a 100-year period. The environmental consequences are staggering. During the 2015 fire season, Indonesia experienced one of the worst ecological disasters in recent memory. A study published in Scientific Reports found that the fires emitted over 1.6 billion metric tons of CO2 equivalents, more than the entire U.S. economy was emitting on a daily basis for weeks. The sky turned orange, air quality plummeted, and entire regions were engulfed in toxic haze that drifted as far as Singapore and Malaysia. This haze isn't just a nuisance, it's a public health crisis. The World Bank estimated that during the 2015 fires, over 500,000 people were affected by respiratory problems, particularly vulnerable groups like children, the elderly, and those with asthma. Schools were closed, flights were grounded, and hospitals overflowed with patients suffering from smoke inhalation. Beyond human health and emissions, the fires wreak havoc on ecosystems. They kill off understory plant life, destroy habitats, and even ignite underground peat fires that can smolder for months, releasing carbon silently and invisibly long after the visible flames are gone. What makes this even more frustrating is that many of these fires are preventable. They're often illegal and set deliberately, yet enforcement is lax. Despite pledges from major palm oil companies to halt deforestation and fire clearing practices, satellite data continues to reveal thousands of new hotspots each year. The result, a climate double whammy. We lose critical carbon sinks and release massive emissions at the same time. It's a vicious cycle that's accelerating climate change and degrading some of the most valuable ecosystems on Earth. Palm oil isn't just an environmental issue, it's a deeply human one too. The rapid expansion of palm plantations has come at a heavy cost to indigenous communities and rural landowners, many of whom have lived sustainably on their ancestral lands for generations. These communities are often forcibly displaced, intimidated, or tricked into giving up their land through legal loopholes or corrupt agreements that favor large agro corporations. In Indonesia alone, where palm oil is a $20 billion industry, hundreds of land conflicts have been recorded, many tied directly to palm oil expansion. According to the Indigenous Peoples Alliance of the Archipelago, AMAN, more than 10 million indigenous people risk losing their land rights due to commercial agriculture. Once the forests are cleared and the plantations move in, entire ways of life vanish. Hunting grounds, medicinal plants, sacred sites, and community autonomy. And the exploitation doesn't stop with land. Labor abuses on palm oil plantations are well documented. In 2016, Amnesty International released a report that exposed the use of child labor and forced labor on plantations supplying major multinational brands. Children as young as 8 years old were found hauling heavy sacks of fruit exposed to dangerous pesticides without protective gear. Women reported earning below minimum wage, often without contracts, and were pressured to meet quotas or risk losing their jobs. Other reports have highlighted wage theft, long hours without breaks, and threats of violence or dismissal for speaking out. Migrant workers, particularly from neighboring countries or impoverished regions, are especially vulnerable. Many laborers live in company-controlled housing, buy food from company stores, and have little legal recourse if abuses occur, creating a system disturbingly similar to modern-day indentured servitude. What's particularly heartbreaking is that many of the people being displaced and exploited are those who once acted as guardians of the land. Their traditional ecological knowledge, forest stewardship, and sustainable agricultural practices are being pushed aside in favor of a model that prioritizes cheap, high-volume production over people and planet. These human rights violations are not rare exceptions. They're systemic symptoms of an industry that too often values profits over ethics. And while some companies have signed onto no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation, in DPE pledges, accountability remains weak. Loopholes in supply chains allow dirty palm oil to be mixed with certified sources, making it difficult for consumers to know what they're really buying. To truly address the palm oil crisis, we can't just focus on forests and wildlife. We must also center the rights of Indigenous peoples and vulnerable workers, ensuring that justice, equity, and dignity are part of the sustainability conversation. Enter RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. It was created to certify palm oil that meets environmental and social criteria. But watchdog groups have found loopholes, lack of enforcement, and continued violations under RSPO certified brands. A 2020 study in Science of the Total Environment found that certified plantations didn't necessarily perform better on forest conservation, while RSPO is a step in the right direction. Many argue that it doesn't go far enough. Critics also point out that RSPO certification often focuses on paperwork rather than real-world outcomes. Some plantations receive certification despite ongoing deforestation, labor abuse, or community disputes simply because they meet minimum technical requirements. Investigations by groups like Rainforest Action Network and Environmental Investigation Agency have revealed cases where RSPO certified companies were found clearing orangutan habitat or involved in unresolved land conflicts. Consumers may feel reassured by the sustainable label, but in many cases, it's greenwashing, an attempt to maintain business as usual under the appearance of responsibility. True sustainability, they argue, requires full supply chain transparency, independent auditing, and meaningful consequences for violations, not just self-reporting and voluntary guidelines. Thankfully, innovation is on the rise. Companies are exploring lab-grown palm oil using yeast fermentation. Others are creating palm-free products using sunflower, algae, or even microbially synthesized oils. Brands like Meow Meow Tweet and Ethic offer truly palm-free lines. Some governments are also stepping in. The EU has voted to phase out palm oil in biodiesel by 2030. Consumers, too, are demanding change, and brands are starting to listen. One exciting development comes from biotechnology companies like C16 Biosciences and Xylome, which are producing bioidentical palm oil using yeast fermentation, a method that requires no deforestation and significantly reduces greenhouse gas emissions. These lab-grown oils mimic the texture and performance of palm oil, making them attractive to manufacturers of food, cosmetics, and cleaning products. Meanwhile, ingredient innovators are turning to upcycled materials, such as leftover seeds from wine grapes or coffee production, to create novel emollients and surfactants. These breakthroughs show that with the right investment and consumer support, we can decouple beauty and convenience from ecological harm and make sustainable alternatives the norm, not the exception. Check ingredient labels for palm oil and its derivatives, which often go by names like glycerol stearate or sodium lauryl sulfate. Use tools like the Geeky app or WWF Palm Oil Scorecard to find out which companies are using responsibly sourced ingredients. Support brands with transparent sourcing and strong environmental policies. And remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about awareness and informed choices. Beyond consumer choices, you can also use your voice. Reach out to brands and ask about their palm oil sourcing. Advocate for stronger regulations and deforestation-free supply chains in your community and on social media. Supporting reforestation efforts and Indigenous land rights organizations can also make a meaningful impact. When enough people demand accountability, industries are forced to respond. So every small action adds up. The true cost of palm oil is measured not just in lost trees, but in lost species, displaced communities, and disrupted climates. But we have the power to turn the tide as consumers, advocates, and planetary citizens. If this episode moved you, please consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review, or supporting the show on Patreon at patreon.com/Green Earth Essentials. Your support helps keep Green Earth Essentials fresh and mission-driven. Until next time, may your choices be conscious, your actions impactful, and your heart rooted in the earth. This is Michelle Jackson, signing off.